All right, recording.
Yay.
So we'll wait a few more minutes, see who else appears. There's someone. Hello.
Sweet. Salut.
Hello.
Mm.
So yeah, we're just going to give it a few more minutes, see who shows up. So I only actually see, I think Richard is actually planning to play along at home. Is he the only one, or any of you others going to be cooking while I'm doing this? So I take it that Lucas Gustafsson, you guys seem like you're pretty well settled in.
Yeah, they have to pay free, so we're not making it this time. But
okay.
A little short for shopping for us. We go like 1 for 26 shopping.
Okay, no worries. And Lucas Julieron, sorry, are you going to be cooking?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But I'm just going to continue to show the way, and next time I'm going to be doing it. But
sounds great. And
I'm just going to watch.
Jonathan.
Hi, Richard. Nice setup. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
I'm trying to recreate what I expected it would have been like in the office if Mark had done it in person, where he would have had all of us lining up on the benches and chopping stuff. So.
Defo. Good idea.
That's true.
Sweet. Oh, that's nice.
Okay. So I don't know. What do you think? Should I maybe give it one more minute, and then we'll whatever you think.
Worst comes to worst, it'll be recorded, and if you can like catch up on the time, it's fine.
I mean, my take at the end of the day, as I said to you, if Richard was the only one who showed up, he and I would just have a lovely time pouring stories back and forth. So I've got bonus with all these other people. So
sweet, awesome. All right, well, I'll go back to Amelie to just finish up her project.
Okay.
But you guys have fun. I hope more will join, and let me know maybe tomorrow or later on how it went.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, fun.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. Well, why don't we get started? So the first part of this is so straightforward that if people show up late, I'm not too worried about it. So let me give you a little bit of background on what we're going to do and kind of why I picked this. So these are what we're going to make are Chinese pot stickers. People who live in Montreal, you're going to be very familiar with something like them because I've seen any number of, since I moved here, any number of dumpling restaurants like Harbin who do variations of this idea. I picked this because it's something that goes back to my childhood. I think Stephanie called this a masterclass, which is a bit funny to me because I'd say I'm a master at this the way my grandmother was a master at pound cake. It's just a thing you did. Nobody was a master of it. It was just, I can't remember a time when I wasn't having pot stickers, and my best friend, whose family are Chinese, are, you know, these were always around, and his dad made them. So for me, there's a real sentimental attachment to doing this particular dish. So that was part of the motivation. And then part of it was about fitting into the time frame that we have and what I could do and have ready to show in a proper fashion. So first thing, and don't let the kids see this because they're not allowed, but I'm not gonna do this completely sober. So I'm just gonna pour myself something. Kids, this is clearly Kool-Aid. It's all good. Oh. That gets me in the spirit. So let me walk you through what we're going to use. And I'll tell a few stories along the way about some things that have happened here, because as I say, I've been making these for a long time, and I've had some wonderful outcomes and some less wonderful outcomes. So maybe some of those will be instructional to you. So first, let's just start with our ingredients. So, and I'm going to turn the camera down a little just so you can see the ingredients a little better. So I've got, I believe it's about a half kilo of ground beef. By the way, I'm using ground beef. Again, this is actually sentimental for me. My best friend's dad, Raymond Wong, would always use ground beef. Pork is more traditional. That's what I have in the recipe. But you can use anything virtually. We've used ground chicken, ground turkey, ground lamb. You can use ground shrimp. Works great. Shrimp actually mixes really well with things like water chestnuts, which I actually have here. and you can, we've done tofu, like firm tofu, and cut that up. And probably the craziest one I think we ever did was when I lived in Scotland, we did haggis. So if you guys are familiar with haggis, it's a sort of sausage, and but it's its own thing. It's not like anything else, and we did that. So you can fill with almost anything. Everything in this filling is replaceable. They don't have to taste like a Chinese dish. They can taste like almost anything because it's really a wrapper with some kind of meat or meat-like thing in them. Okay, so we've got the ground beef, some garlic. My recipe says 2 cloves. This is quite a large clove, so I'm just going to use 1. We've got some green onions. And what I have here is, shiitake mushrooms. So I've used dried and rehydrated. I actually like these for this purpose. They have a nice intense flavor. Richard told me earlier that he's using fresh ones. So you get.
And then I dehydrated them, and then I rehydrated them.
Of course you did, Richard. You can use it, as I say, anything really works. You can make up your recipe as long as you end up with something that's kind of like, you know, like a hamburger mix or a meatloaf mix, anything like that. It's gonna work pretty well. I've got water chestnuts. Do this without spilling it. So I've got water chestnuts that I've left them in their liquid just to keep them nice and fresh. I've got some Napa cabbage, and I'm going to show you. I don't know if this is a common thing here. It's common enough back in San Francisco, which is where I'm from. But you can use regular cabbage. That's fine too. But these are nice. They're good. I like the water chestnut. It's going to add a nice crunch to what you're doing. I'm going to grate some. There we go. Some ginger. And then now I've got a couple of sauces that go into this. Sesame oil, which the only thing I'll say about that is make sure whenever you use sesame oil, focus on getting a toasted sesame oil, because that's you want the flavor. You sometimes will see these very light colored sesame oils. They don't carry the flavor. The thing about sesame oil is when you think about Asian foods, often sesame oil is a huge component in that. It's got a wonderful umami flavor. It's really kind of rich and toasty. And if you get the lighter sesame oils, sometimes they don't carry that flavor. I have here 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. Now, dark soy sauce is a little different. Here's a bottle of it. Is a little different from the regular soy sauce that you might be used to getting. It's less salty, but again, it's more umami. It's got more of that sort of rich flavor that you associate with shiitake mushrooms, which you might associate with grilled meats. So using a dark soy sauce for this is really good. Sometimes people will mix the dark and the regular. I would probably not do low sodium unless you have a particular dietary need around that. And then and I've got, here it is. I've got mirin. Actually, I'll show you the bottle. I've poured out the amount I want. So, and mirin is a rice one. You can use like cooking sherry will do the job. But these flavors together, particularly the ginger and the shiitake mushrooms, the dark soy sauce, the sesame oil, you combine those together, you're going to get what you might think of as a really typical Asian flavor, right? A very typical Chinese flavor. I will also, by the way, mention that these dumplings are really common across Asia. It's not just the Chinese. The Chinese variation is what I know, and probably within that, they're probably Szechuan or something. I don't even know. But you can, you'll see the Japanese have gyoza, which is virtually the same thing. The Koreans have mandu, which they often have as boiled, but also sometimes fried like this. In Nepal, they've got something called momo. Again, very, very similar. So it's a very common Asian thing to take some meat, put it in a wrapper, and fry and steam it or whatever. Okay, so that's pretty much the setup. Oh, I have some white pepper. I didn't mention. I'm going to put a dash of white pepper again, give something of a flavor you'd be used to. Okay, so that's the setup for what we're going to do. So the first stage of this is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to mix everything, all those ingredients together, and we'll take it from there. Let's see. I'm going to turn the camera so you can actually see. I was supposed to have a camera operator, but my wife couldn't be with us, so I'm doing a little bit of everything all on my own. So I'm going to pour in all these ingredients. That's the dark soy sauce. and sesame oil. And if you're playing at home, and I think Richard is, in fact, the only one who's playing at home, you can do these steps along with me.
Shocking.
Okay. And I think what's important just to note about all this is, as I was kind of stressing before, you can really kind of make this into anything. There is nothing that says you have to do this sort of Asian style flavoring. Like you could do these curried, you could do them in a kind of Southwest or Cajun style, or like, there's almost nothing. It's kind of like when you get, I don't know if you guys have had burritos that are, might be filled with any number of things, or tacos, or for that matter here, poutine. Everyone does poutine with, different types of, they had that poutine week a little while ago, and everyone had a variation you could try. It's very similar to this. You can be super crazy with your fillings. Now, the only thing I'll say about when you're, oh, sorry, did someone say something?
How many scallions are you using?
I used 3. My recipe says, I think I say half a cup. And you be you, Richard. It'll all work. Now, the only thing I'll say when you're prepping all this veg that you have to cut up is, other than don't cut yourself, which, usually a good tip, is make sure that it's fine enough. So just think forward. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these, I'll show you, these are the wrappers that I have. We're going to take these and we're going to stuff those wrappers. So we want our filling to be fine enough that we don't end up with big blocks that make it hard for us to seal our wrapper. So when I think I probably say in this, in my instructions, everything fine. And that's true. You want to make sure everything you're doing here is ultimately pretty finely chopped. So I'm just going to go and go through this, make sure I don't end up with any large, you don't have to be super fastidious. It's not like when you're, sometimes I'll chop garlic super, super fine if I want to rub it into a steak or something, but that's not necessary here. We just so that there's no large chunks. Does anybody have any questions about this or what we're doing while I'm taking a few minutes to chop?
Yeah, I have a question. Like, what do you think are the best alternatives for vegetarian versions? You talked about tofu, but
yeah. So to be clear, not an expert on vegetarian. So I couldn't say for sure. I have certainly made tofu ones. Now, if you're going to do tofu, number one, tofu doesn't have a lot of flavor. So you might want to, you'll want to make sure you get those sauces in there. And you might even want to use, like, actually, I have an example here. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I do. Okay, not sure where it is. Oh, yes, I am. Here we go. So I have this tofu, which is one of these ones where they kind of pre-bake it. Tofu marine. I don't know. I'm not even sure I can show that to you properly without it dripping everywhere. But so that's pretty good because it offers a little more flavor, and it's also a very firm. Natalie.
Hi. It's just I can't stay, but I wanted to watch a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I was just.
Richard is cooking. Very cool.
Of course,
I'm
Richard is
trying
cooking.
to cook along and very sad, disappointed in my colleagues.
No, but next time, seriously, next time I sign up and I make the time to go do my grocery. So scary.
I was just answering a question about meat alternatives with doing this. And so, so like a good firm marinated tofu is a pretty good option. I also would say if you're gonna do it, match that with maybe more of the shiitake mushrooms than I am using, right? So use that to bulk it out, and the flavor of the mushrooms will give you lots of joy in your life, I'd say. My experience with tofu has been that sometimes the filling ends up a little looser. so that's something you might need to experiment with and play with until you can come up with a good answer. I think what else I've seen used that is vegetarian. I certainly have seen people mix vegetables in, like particularly greens. So pea shoots is a good one. I actually get those. I don't. Do you guys know Loofah, the food delivery service? I get those. They push those on me every week, and I love them. So they mix really well with Chinese flavors. So you could cut some of those up and mix those in again with the tofu or whatever, and that'll work really nicely. Okay, this is pretty good. I think a little finer, and I'll be there with that.
I have another question actually. Where do you buy all your stuff?
Oh,
like,
great question. So I only discovered recently a place near me. Now I live on the plateau, and there's a place. I guess is it like the Eden Center? Is that, have I got that right? The shop is called Eden Foods.
Oh yeah.
You know it, Natalie?
But Eden Center, like downtown, right?
Oh well, so you can certainly go you can go down into like what is it called? The Golden something.
The Golden Mile.
Golden Mile, thank you. And you can find you find Asian shops, and that was okay. But for me, it was really inconvenient because it was just so far from where I live. So I found this place, and I can walk there pretty much from here.
What's the name?
Eden, like Eden Foods, the Eden Center, the Eden something.
Because the Eden Center, there's only one in Montreal, and it's downtown.
Well, I suppose it depends on your definition of downtown. I wouldn't have said this was really downtown. It's just off Rue Prince Arthur. Anyway, I you know, bear in mind who you're talking to. My knowledge of Montreal is a little.
The only eating center I know is on Sainte Catherine, so that's the only one I know.
Okay, so this place is on the corner of Avenue des Pines.
Mm-hmm.
No, not Avenue des Pines. Avenue Park, and it's just down from Avenue des Pines. Avenue Park, and I think it's.
Is it in Milan or is it?
No. More like.
In the ghetto, the McGill ghetto.
Kind of, yeah. Actually, you know where it's very close to is there's a big. We went to. Amelie had us go to a job fair for McGill, and it's just very, very close to that. There was but it wasn't McGill itself. It was one of the residence halls for McGill, if that helps.
Okay, so yeah.
But really close to the foot of the mountain, just off Rue Prince Arthur, as I say, Park Avenue Park. So sorry, I'm slowing down because I'm talking. I should just finish this bit of the business, but. Anyway, so that place was terrific. I was so happy to find it because they had potsticker skins, they had wonton skins, they had gyoza skins, so you could like choose what type of dumpling you wanted to make. Any of those will do, by the way, but they were all good. They had all kinds of different soy sauce and sesame oils and rices, and I found everything I needed there. Okay, now with the mushrooms, let me just point out these mushrooms are gonna, if you've been soaking them the way I have, they're going to be really full of liquid. So you want to squeeze them out because you don't really want all that liquid in, and they'll make a mess if you're not careful. All right. So.
What's in your bowl so far?
Mine is everything except the mushrooms and the pepper.
Okay, I've got a bit of catching up to do.
What's that?
I said I've got a bit of catching up to do there.
Okay, sorry. Well, I'll wait for you when you're at the far end. The other thing, by the way, to watch out for is you can see here I've got a bit of stem on this particular mushroom, and the stems can be pretty tough. So if you find that you have any stem, particularly on a dried mushroom, probably worth cutting it away. Okay. Oh, the other thing I haven't done is I haven't grated my ginger yet. So you have some time to catch up with me, Richard.
I've got ginger already.
Mm-hmm. And I see people that I don't know. So are you guys new, the two Lucas?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I started working at Unity like a couple of months ago. And
Oh,
this is
okay.
my girlfriend.
Yeah.
She doesn't work at Unity, but yeah. Guys.
Okay, yeah, sorry. There are so many people. I probably walked by you a couple of times and
Yeah,
I'm
he's been here
sorry
for a
about
little
that. Yeah, sorry about that. Good to see you. And who is the other Lucas? You've been okay. I think I'm not sure. I can't see from far, but I think I
He was
was
at
sitting not
game
too
night.
far. Okay, yeah, I was sitting not too far from you. Okay, all right, cool. And Jonathan was like, he goes way back when we had a tiny office. And Richard, like, he goes way back when Unity did not exist. And Mark is like Unity, so yeah.
Brilliant. So I'm going to imbibe here for a second.
Cheers.
Cheers. Now, the last item I'm going to throw in is the ginger. I believe I said something like I'm looking at my recipe here. 2 tablespoons of grated ginger. I am certainly not going to bother measuring this. I will do a fair bit of ginger because I love ginger. And a detail to note, lots of people have this strange idea that you need to peel your ginger before you grate it. That is, unless your ginger is super old and the skin of it is ridiculous, like I will just throw it all in. I've never had anybody complain to me about my ginger. So I'm pretty sure this is a perfectly safe thing to do.
That's because they don't know you do that.
That's exactly it. So you too can save this step. And indeed, more importantly, save your ginger because it's delicious and you want to use it. So one thing I do with ginger, and some of the people here have seen me do this, is I will do a soda. At least I think some of the people here, and I promised Stephanie that I'd show her this, and I never.
That's so true. I just remembered.
So I make a
Corona.
I make a soda with it's just soda water, elderflower cordial, which I can find here in Montreal, which is awesome. It was hard to find in San Francisco, and grated ginger, and then sometimes a squeeze of lime. And it's just delicious, super refreshing in the summertime. And again, I don't bother peeling the ginger when I do that. It just goes straight in. So it's kind of like making a homemade ginger ale.
And I think elderberry is like really good for you, isn't it? Like there's a bunch of benefits.
I am so not interested in my health. I can't even begin to tell you.
Okay then.
I mean, sure, great. But I'm just like, whatever. It's delicious. Okay.
Just trying to add.
I'm going to mix this up. So, Richard, I have finished all my ingredients, just so you know.
Okay, I think I still have to do so the cabbage, you used just a couple of leaves of it?
Yeah.
Okay, and I need to add the sesame, the mirin, and the soy sauce, yeah?
Yep.
The pepper, okay.
Cool.
It's like I can almost smell it from here. It smells so good.
It does smell so good, actually.
Yeah, no, I can tell it smells really good.
All that ginger and soy sauce and sesame oil is
my favorite flavors.
I'm gonna tap in a little bit of white pepper. And then sometimes what I'll do, and I want to mention a couple of optionals here that I am not doing, but that I mentioned at the very beginning that this is a very sentimental dish for me because my best friend's dad used to make it for us all through our childhood and well in, pretty much all the way up to the point he passed away. So one of the, and so he would always do it, he had his particular ways of doing it. One thing he liked to do was throw MSG into the, Accent is often the brand name. I don't know if that's the brand name here, but monosodium glutamate. And that is almost the definition of umami flavor. It's a sort of salty but rich flavor. And he would he would put some of that in. And then of course there was the whole scare over MSG and everybody said it was gonna kill you. But the science behind that was never good. It's a really interesting story. You should do a search on MSG myths and you'll find out that the whole thing was kind of a weird combination of health craze and racism, frankly, that was behind the whole thing about MSG being bad for you. The other thing he would throw in would be some beef broth. So he would, as I said, he liked to use ground beef, which is what I'm using today, and he would add some. So once you've mixed this really well, and you've got your fill, so this is basically my filling. My filling is more or less done, but I will add a little liquid to it, and it's hard to say how much. I don't want to make it liquidy, but I just want to give it a little bit of extra juice, essentially. So he used beef broth. I'm actually going to use the water that the mushrooms were rehydrated in. I will just say that these ones never give me this problem, but sometimes with rehydrating mushrooms, there'll be grit in the bottom. So be attentive to that if you do what I'm about to do, which is to pour, I don't know, a few tablespoons of that in and just give it one more mix. And then we're going to be ready for the really good bit of this whole program, which is going to be the making of the dumplings, because that's really what makes this whole thing interesting and fun. So, last of my soy sauce in there. Okay, cool. So, as you can see, I think, I now have a really nice filling. How are you doing there, Richard?
Chopping my cabbage, and then I just need to add my my liquids.
Perfect. Okay. So I won't start assembling until you're ready to catch up with me, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to just clear a couple of things out of my way so that I can operate. So I mentioned at the beginning that the first phase of this is super open. You can do almost anything you want. And that's what I've done is I've made a kind of, this could be a meatball mixture. Anything that you can imagine kind of in that family is fine. The second phase is making the dumplings. And the making of the dumplings is a really interesting process. I actually have learned a fair bit about it as I've been planning this class. Like I think I used to do fairly mundane dumplings, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this class. Let me get a little better at this. So I've been playing at it, and I think I've upped my game a little for you guys. So hopefully this shows, and you'll have some fun with it.
And you make dumplings like the Taiwanese way. I think the proper way to eat a dumpling is when they have like 16 folds, and apparently like they made a study that the 16 folds add extra texture or something like that, and you mix it very
that sounds awesome, and I just want to believe it, whether it's true or not.
It was a documentary, so
okay, that's news to me, but I love it. It's a great bit of info. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, so I'm going to show, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to show you, I don't know, like 4 or 5 or 6 different folding techniques. And they're all really easy once you learn them. Some of them look frankly plain, and some of them look really cool. And now the other thing I should mention is that I am using wrappers as opposed to making my dough from scratch, right? That's a thing I could have done, and I even thought about it. I thought, oh, this will be more impressive. But to be honest, you make your dough from scratch. And by the way, and I'm pretty sure that you can do much better dumplings, much more impressive dumplings with dough from scratch. Because these things, they're a little dry, and they're just dry enough that I think that with dough, like you can imagine with bread dough, right? You can push it together, you can tear it and pull it and push it and do things with it that I don't think these will quite do. But it also takes you like an extra hour. Oh, sorry. Okay. See you, Nema. She says she has to.
Yeah, I gotta go. Bye.
Okay.
Bye, Nat.
Bye.
So it takes like an extra hour, and I didn't really think you wanted to sit around while I kneaded dough for 10 minutes and all that. So I figured this is probably a better bet. Right. So I'm almost ready to start, but I want to wait for Richard to catch up with me.
Just mixing.
Okay, no worries. And okay, so while he's doing that, well, actually, while he's doing that, first thing is, are there any other questions? Maybe that's a good way to kill some time. No?
So your bowl has many, for how many servings?
I imagine I could probably make about 40 dumplings, maybe more, with a pound of meat. It's not an exact science, because I've never really, as I say, this is something I've done since I was a kid.
Right.
And because I've done it since I was a kid, I've never really given it a lot of thought. It's just a thing. Even writing this recipe was almost a throw the recipe out on the page, and then I actually shared it with this friend of mine, Alex, and had him give me some tips and tricks of things he does and that his dad used to do just to kind of fill it out. It's not something I give much thought to. There's a story in that actually, and maybe while I'm waiting is a good time for this story. So when I was maybe at 20, 21 years old, I was living in England. And at that time, back in the dark ages, it was really hard to get any food there that wasn't steak and kidney pie, pretty much. It was, you know, they limited options.
Why would you need anything else?
Touche. And so I decided that I really missed pot stickers and I hadn't had them in a long time, so I was going to make them. And so, and of course, this is before we had YouTube and before we had anything. Anyway, really, there was no internet, so there was no way for me to like look this up. So I had a vague memory of how it worked, and I was like, okay, some dough and water, you know, some flour and water, and you're going to make the dough, and you're going to make the things, and you make a filling. And here's the thing: the key element of this whole exercise is going to be when I cook it. And when I cook it, I'm going to do something that is insane by any measure, right? And that is, I'm going to take hot oil, I'm going to fry something in that hot oil, and then I'm going to throw water onto that hot oil. What do hot oil and water do when they hit each other? They explode.
No.
So now it turns out that there's a safe way to do this. And if you know how to do it, you're golden, not a problem. In fact, you're golden brown and delicious and crispy. If you don't know what you're doing, you burn down your house. So I had no idea what I was doing. I was 20 years old and full of idiocy, and I made these dough things that were way too thick and filled it with meat, and there was stuff everywhere, and it was a whole mess. And then I thought, I don't know how much oil and water, so I did probably maybe 1/4 of an inch of oil in the bottom of the pan. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Take water, I don't know, maybe about a cup of water sounds about right. Throw it in, lid on. Boom! And I had flame and hot oil everywhere. I am lucky to this day that I am not scarred for life from this.
Really?
I had flames going up the walls. I had, and you know, so I'm fighting a fire, and I finally got it under control. The kitchen was a wreck. I didn't burn the house down, but it was a bit of a mess. And I actually went back to this same house a few years later. It was a student home. It was one of these places that exchanged, you know, owners. So I still knew the people. And a couple of years later, I went back, and there were still scorch marks up and down.
No way.
The sides.
You left a mark.
I left a literal mark. So how are we doing, Richard?
Done, I think.
Perfect. Okay. So here's where we're going to get into some fun. So I am going to take a container here. Actually, I may as well just keep using, I'll just keep using my mushroom water until it runs out. Okay, so I'm going to show you some folding techniques. And the folding techniques are really cool, and they're not that hard. So now when you use, when you make dough and have your own real fillings, you don't need the water. The water is purely because these are dry, and nothing, if I try and stick them together, not a lot's going to happen because they're dry and covered in flour, essentially. So and by the way, I also have some flour. This isn't in the recipe, but I have a little flour on the side. It'll just kind of keep my hands from sticking too much. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to turn the camera down so you can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to dip my finger in the water, and I'm going to just do a little bit of water around the edges, right? Take a spoonful. And by the way, I almost guarantee you, this happens to me every time. The first 1 or 2 of these don't come out great because I don't quite get, it takes me a while to just remember what the right quantity is. But here we go. So I've got the other thing. I'm just got a little paper towel because frankly, I would rather wipe my hands on paper towel than on a real towel when I have meat. Okay, so I've got a quantity of meat and I've got the skin. And I am going to fold this over. I'm not too bad here. I am a little overloaded, but not too badly. And I'm just going to press it really hard. Can you guys all see that? So, and press, and press. And the idea here is you just want to seal it as much as you can. And the water there is going to help everything stick together. Okay, there we go. Hey, not too bad for my first one of the day. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. That is not the most attractive pot sticker you will ever see, but can you see that, Richard?
Yep.
Okay, not the most attractive you ever see, but it's functional, right? This is all you need to do to make pot stickers. You don't need to do the other clever stuff I'm about to show you. But if what you're interested in is what does it taste like, then the folding doesn't matter. The folding comes in handy for a few things. So one of them, of course, is if you got guests and you want to impress them and you just wanted to, you know, hey, we're doing something special. We homemade dumplings. May as well give them a nice show. And that's a nice thing. And what I'll show you will be more attractive than this one. But if all you're interested in is something tasty, why not just have the tasty thing and not make yourself a lot of work? Maybe I'll leave that there so you can see it. Okay. The other value that I will point out to shaping and having folding techniques is that I often, when I do these for a meal, I will do more than one filling. So maybe I have vegetarian friends. I decide to invite Lucas over. I'm just guessing from your question. I don't know. And Lucas is going to be vegetarian, but I want my meaty pot stickers. So I want to be able to tell them apart, right? And so by having a different folding technique, I can tell them one from the other. Lucas, was that a fair guess or not? I don't even know.
No, we are actually not vegetarian, but you know, we like to have alternatives to, you know, meat, just
Cool.
because sometimes we eat too much meat. So.
Okay, well that's fair. So do I.
And also, we're trying to find out ways to eat tofu without being completely disgusted by it. So.
Well, this is not a bad answer to that. Okay, so we're going to do another technique here. This technique is one that you'll see. You'll see this as almost the kind of default. People do this one all the time, and I don't actually like it that much. I think it's okay. It's a bit of a weird. I'm going to pull a little more out of this. It's okay, but there's another. I'll show you a variation on it that's much nicer. That gets you to the same end really quickly. So I'm going to do the same thing I started with. So I've got that same sort of crescent shape. I've pressed everything together, my functional pot sticker. And then I'm going to wet the outside of this. And I'm just going to do little pleats. This is actually what my instructions tell you to do, right? You do that. You might even want to, actually, I'll tell you, I'm going to wet both sides of it. That'll probably make it stick a little better. But then you just pleat, you pleat, you pleat. You see this one a lot. I don't actually think it's that attractive, but it's actually a fairly common one to see. And you get, I don't know, this is, and honestly, this isn't even my best. This is a pretty ugly version of it. But I'm not going to belabor it too much because I don't like this one that much, but people do it a lot. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably what, let's say, non-Chinese people do when they want that look without actually doing the real work of getting a properly shaped pot sticker. That's my thought. Now let me show you one that I actually do like. Hopefully I can do it well. I'll make a nice show of it. But I told you that I was learning some new folding techniques, and I learned this one, and I think it's really nice. It's the variation on that actually looks nice. So I'm going to wet both sides of 1/2. And instead of, okay, hopefully you can see this. I'll do it a couple of times if we needed to. So instead of folding it in half, I'm actually going to start at one side, and I'm going to do my pleat, and I'm going to do another pleat, and I'm just going to keep moving. Pleat, pleat. Okay, so if you can see that, I've got this half pleated, and then wet the inside. There we go. And that, just seal it up. Now that is, to me,
Wow.
much more attractive and much more, this is more the traditional thing. It's a little, it's just a tiny bit harder than the other one, but it's so much, to me, this is worth doing. Like I would do that just for me, just for my own personal sense of pride. I've let a little bit of meat get out there. Not a big deal. You don't need to stress that too much. Shall I show that one again?
So I got an interesting complication for you, Mark.
What's that? Oh, yeah. You got wonton wrappers.
The packet said wonton wrappers. Like, okay.
Okay. Well, so there are a couple things you can do. There are actually several things you can do, and I'll show you some easy ones. One thing you can do is you can get a cookie cutter or something and cut it into a circle. I've literally seen recommendations to do that.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what. I'll come back to this one and show you again. Let me show you something that's going to be a little easier for you to do with that shape. So I'm gonna. So let me think about this, because you're going to do square shape. Well, you'll get the gist. Let's see if we can get this to translate, because I think it'll work.
The same as the last technique, but we're going all the way around half the rectangle, I guess.
Well, you could try that. That wasn't the one I was going to show you, but let's try this and see. So I'm going to, again, finger in the water, and I'm going to go all the way around the inside. So try that, Richard.
Yep. All right.
Okay, all the way around the inside. And then what I'm going to do, and you might want to do this from a point, is my thinking. I'm going to pull together one side,
okay,
and pinch it together. So you can see what I've got here. Is it's like a it's like a Venus coming out of the shell or something.
Something like that.
Oh, okay, yes. Stephanie, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Okay, so I've got this thing with the shell, and then what I'm going to do. And I think you should be able to do this even with a square, is I'm going to push up from the center of the other side.
Yep, to bring it another way. And
bring it right to the middle, and then pinch. So what I'm building here is a tri-corner hat.
Yes.
Does that work for you with a square?
Kind of. I end up with these corners kind of sticking out still.
Okay.
Yes, I mean it's not the prettiest thing in the world.
Let me see. Okay. I mean, look, I suspect that there are techniques for the squares. It's just a little bit of, that was a bit of a curveball. You could try, you could also try doing, Richard, is cutting the corners. Like take a knife and just cut the corners so that you've got something a little more like an octagon.
Yep.
So that's a trifold. That's, like, as you saw, super simple.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Now, what do you guys think? Should I go to another design, or shall I repeat so you can see I think this one, as I say, is really worth seeing maybe again. What do we think? I see a nod, so I'll go with the one person nodding at me.
Yeah.
What's your name?
I'm Clarice.
Clarice?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Clarice.
So, I'm gonna... Okay, so I've got a little more. And by the way, we're not going to assemble, I'm not going to take you through assembling this whole bowl is going to take a long time, so I'm not going to do that. I will take a little out of that. So this is a great thing, by the way, this is a lovely thing to do with a bunch of friends, maybe, especially if you have friends who like to cook. Bring them over, you can all sit there and you can sort of sit around a table gabbing while you make dumplings. It's really fun. So let's do this, we're going to do this crescent one again. So I'm going to take it. And again, Richard, I would think maybe you could do it from the corner by doing it, like a diamond shape instead of thinking of it as a square. Mm. And I'm going to pleat. Oh, I forgot to wet the outside. Got to wet the whole thing. Okay. So do a pleat and a pleat, and you're literally just folding it over each time. And slowly what's going to happen is the opening is going to get tight. And as it gets tight, you'll kind of get a sense, okay, it's time for me to close this up. So here we go. I've got this thing. It's super, super nice there, I hope. Looks nice to me. Hopefully it looks nice all over the camera. Then wet the inside. And then I'm going to try and do this in reverse. This is a little weird for me, but so you can see better. And then just fold it, And you see it like, because one side of it is folded and the other side isn't, you get that natural crescent shape. Okay. All right, I want to show you, I have at least three more designs I want you guys to see, just to give you a sense. So I'm going to do another one that's a little like this trifold. I think the trifold was pretty straightforward. I don't need to do that one again, right? Everyone kind of gets that, how that one works. This is the same idea, only I'm going to do 4 instead of 3, 4 points. And this makes a nice parcel. I like the look of it. So I'm going to wet the entire inside. A little bit of filling, maybe a little bit less. It's always a bit of a struggle to get that exact amount, because if you have too much, this is something you'll learn the first time you try this. Richard may be discovering this already. It's super easy to have too much, and suddenly you have, you know, your filling squirting in every direction. So it starts the same way the trifold starts. I'm going to just bring it over, bring it over, pinch the center. Then I'm going to do what I did on one side, I'm going to do on both sides. So push up in the center. And now I've got those 2 points. Turn it around, push up in the center. And by the way, the other thing to note is you can do this, like I keep saying how you can do any filling. Like there's no reason why that can't be a ravioli. Right? Like this could just be, you could be doing this with pasta dough and making something that is like a ravioli or a tortellini or something like that. So there we go. All right. I have 2 more shapes in mind that I want to show you. So speaking of tortellini, this one is basically a tortellini style. It's going to look really familiar right up until the very end. So I'm going to wet the inside. I'm going to wet the outside. Okay. Bit of filling. Okay. Okay. So, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to pull a little out. Okay, exact same thing I did before. It's funny, I haven't gone for the flour once. I feel like I should be, but just the idea was to have something that would keep my hands drier, but it hasn't been a problem. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did, but with these crescent ones. I'm going to fold, fold, keep doing that pleating action. Okay, and wet the inside. Seal it up, and you're like, whoa, that's exactly what you did before. Why is this different? Well, because I'm going to do one last step. I'm going to wet the ends, and then I'm going to fold it in. And this is going to make something that looks a little bit more like a tortellini. I didn't have to do the pleating. I could literally, there we go. So I could literally have just done, so here's my, remember this is my original one, which has nothing going on. I could attempt, I'm not sure how well this will work, but I could attempt to literally the exact same thing with this one. There we go. And you get something that looks a lot like a tortellini. And that's, again, super easy and much nicer than that original functional pot sticker. Okay, so I have one last thing I want to show you. Now, this is one of my favorites. I really like this one. And again, it's not actually any harder than the ones I've been showing, but I think it looks very impressive. This is, I believe this is sometimes called a shalom bao style. Anyway, which shalom bao is what you might think of as a soup dumpling. And I don't have any soup as such to put in this, so this won't be a real soup dumpling, but it'll have that look to it. So I'm going to do something again. This is going to look, you'll notice these patterns kind of repeat. They're like variations on an idea. So I've just wet the inside. I'm now going to wet the outside, but this time I'm going to go all the way around. And I'm happy, by the way, especially for you, Richard, I'm happy to repeat any of these. So I've gone all the way around. Now we're going to do the same thing. It's like we're doing the crescent. I'm going to pleat it. Whoops, didn't quite push. Okay, can you guys see that okay? Let me move some things. Okay, so I'm going to, I really want you to see this one because I love this design. So pleat it, again, and again, and again. Now, if you remember with the other ones, what I would do at this stage is I would seal it up, but I'm going to keep going. Pleat it, pleat it, pleat it. Okay, and then this may not be my best version of this ever. It's a little too, I don't think I filled it quite enough actually, which is an unusual thing. I almost always fill them too much. I'm going to do this one again just so you can see it. That's the idea, but I didn't do it as nicely as I sometimes do. Let me try again, see if I can show you why, because I don't feel like I'm showing you why I love this one so much. It really is very pretty when you get it right. So let's try that one more time. This is the difference between the actual masterclass and me. Okay, water inside and out, just a tiny bit less there. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, pleat it. Sorry, my hands are probably in the way to make this as clear as it could be. This is where having a camera person would really help. Okay. So yeah, this is a little better. It's gonna get really close to fill. In fact, I'm gonna even pull a little out. Hopefully I can get this. I really want you guys to see this one in its prime because it is beautiful when it comes out. See, still not quite as nice as I like. The idea is you get this sort of almost little flower at the top. And I am not necessarily, you see, this is where, not quite a masterclass, kids, but you get this nice, maybe like a garlic bulb or something. So anyway, that's the gist. I may try it one more time for my own, just for my own sense of pride.
The corners on my square give mine something of a chimney.
Hold on, I want to zoom in so I can see what you're showing me. Oh yeah. Yeah, not too bad.
But it gives a bit of a chimney from the...
No worse than mine, to be sure. So, okay. So let me ask, do we want to repeat any of, so I can cook these up and we can move on to the next stage, but I just want to know if anybody wants to see any of these again. If there's anything that, you know, we want to do just to sort of get the ideas down. I think anybody could do this one, right? Because this was just fold it in half and then tuck the edges. So like if you can't do anything, if you can't walk out of this class doing anything else, that one's super simple. I think the tri-fold, the tri-corner hat is super easy. This four-cornered one is super easy. But even the ones like, you know, this nice crescent, those came out really nice and they're good. I'm not sure I've quite acquitted myself with the Shalom Bao ones. So what are you going to do? You get what you pay for. So, but does anybody want to see any more of these done before I move on to the spectacular and highly dangerous cooking stage? Richard, how are you doing?
If it's recorded, you know, we can still watch it later. So
that is, well, so I'm recording locally. So, I mean, what I'll probably do is post this to YouTube when we're done, is my thought. And then, because that way I can share it with my friends and they can all see me burn my house down. That'll be fun. But the, but yeah, I can share that link then to like the local Montreal channel or something like that. Okay, I'm doing this one more time for my own sense of pride because I'm hoping maybe I can get this a little nicer. This feels better. There we go, pleating all the way around. Still just a little too much. So hard to get that exact amount for this. That is really why this one is the one I was going to do last. Yeah, not too bad. It'll probably fry up very nicely. Let's see. Okay, so are we ready? Shall I move on? Richard, are you okay if I move forward?
Yep, go ahead.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna rearrange a tiny bit for this. So I've got just a handful of these in all their different shapes and designs. And what I'm gonna do, now ordinarily I would probably do more than this in a batch. Oh, and I should mention something important. If you're doing a whole bunch of these, and especially if you're gonna be like leaving them for a while, it's not a bad idea to take like a damp cloth or even a damp paper towel and just drape them over this. That'll keep them from drying out too much. That tends not to be so nice. So I don't need to do it here because we're going straight to the frying pan, but yeah, just a thing to be aware of. So next stage, I'm gonna tilt us that way and move a couple things out of the way. Okay. There we go. Now, a little word about oil and water. So I will reiterate what I said earlier. This is actually this is the dangerous bit. This is the bit that can burn houses down if you aren't sensible about it. You want to use oil that has a high flash point. So corn oil is good for this. Peanut oil, vegetable oil is good. Things that are not good, almost any nut or seed oil is a bad idea. Things like sesame oil. This is super delicious, but very low flash point, so it'll burn real easily, and you'll end up with smoke at least, and probably not very nice pot stickers. So something like vegetable oil or peanut oil, or in my case, corn oil, will do just fine. You want to use enough to lightly oil the base. So a tablespoon might be enough, or about that. I'm going to guess it here. There we go. But yeah, 1/4 of an inch, too much. I'm going to turn the heat on. Whoops, I'm going to turn the heat on the correct hob to about medium, maybe a tiny bit above that. Now, can you guys see? I just want to figure out what might be in your way here. Okay. And I might move the laptop a little closer, but I want to be careful. This is actually my work laptop, and it would be not just embarrassing, but downright destructive to my career to have anything happen to it. So I will move a tiny bit closer. There we go. I think that's close, but still safe. Okay, so I'm warming the oil, and I'm also going to prep my water. And by prep, I simply mean I'm going to grab I'm going to guess, I've got here, what I'm guessing is it's a scant 1/4 cup. It's probably more like, let's call it 1/8 of a cup. I'm going to even pour off just a little. I don't need too much. In fact, too much is exactly what I want to avoid. But what's going to happen, this oil is going to get hot. I'm going to put the pot stickers in. They're going to fry. The bottoms are going to get nice and crispy. I'm then going to pour the water in. And I have handy a big heavy lid that fits well over this pan. And this is where all the magic happens, right? It's going to be frying on the bottom, steaming at the top. And if everything comes out well, we're going to have something really, really delicious. I'm going to prep a little plate just to have somewhere to put them. All right, I'm just waiting for my oil to get up to temperature. The other thing I'm going to do, and I apologize if this affects the audio quality, is I'm going to put my fan on a bit. Just because I have a fairly sensitive smoke detector, there is a non-zero chance that we're going to get a fire alarm on us.
Yeah, welcome to Montreal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just test my oil. A couple of drops. They sizzle. That's a great sign. And I'm just going to put these in. So you can, by the way, you can do this a couple of ways. I typically just fry one side, but there's nothing that says if you like it, that you can't. You know, particularly for the crescent moon types ones, fry them, turn them over. but a lot of the ones that I have here are really one-sided, like, you know, my little Shalom Bao ones. So I'm not going to bother with that. So I'm going to let them fry here for a few minutes. I think this is originally where I was planning to tell the story about the burning the house down, but we had that slow spot earlier. It seemed like a good place to do it. So yeah, so these things are just going to fry. And at this point, you know, use your own best judgment about dealing with hot oil. Obviously, you don't want to get yourself burned, but it's not any more dangerous than you know, frying some mushrooms and onions or something that you might do all the time. So I'm just gonna, I sometimes move them a bit just for, I don't know why, it feels like the right thing to do. How's it going for you, Richard? Do you have your oil heating?
Well, oil is heating up. I'm just waiting for the oil. Oh, there you go. It's starting to sizzle now. So yeah, I'll be in the pot in a minute.
Okay. So actually, you know what I'll mention to you while we are waiting? So the traditional serving, the condiment to go with pot stickers would be some combination of soy sauce and a hot oil and vinegar. And some people will do one of these, some people will do a combination of them. I do something a little different. This is my personal preference. I will go with a hot oil or a hot sauce. I just have, you know, your sriracha here. But I love balsamic vinegar. So I actually mix balsamic vinegar and hot sauce, and that's my dipping sauce. You be you. Whatever tastes good to you is by definition the right taste, but I really, really enjoy this combination. It seems to suit them really well. Let's see how we're doing here. So I want to show you. That's the underside, so you can see that it's crisping up really nicely. It's probably about ready for me to throw the water in. So, being as we are at that, more or less at that stage, I'm gonna, the oil in my pan, I maybe just went a little too conservative because it isn't covering everywhere just right, but we're basically there, right? I've got, you saw that one's a little lighter than I'd like it. This one's good. Like that's a great look for the bottom. I don't know if you can see that for the bottom of your pot sticker. So I'm gonna move on to the exciting phase. It won't be that exciting because I'm gonna throw a lid on it, but it'll be exciting if things go wrong. So water, lid ready. Lid goes on. And I'm gonna turn this up a bit to be safe. And basically all you're waiting for with this is to hear the water boil off. That's gonna happen pretty fast, might take a couple of 3 minutes. So, and I'm gonna prep myself while I'm sitting here waiting. I'm gonna prep a little bit of delicious sauce. So, a little bit of balsamic. And a bit of the sriracha. There we go.
And so when you pour the water on the pan, does the temperature have to be like really, really high?
Well, you want, so I've got my stovetop at a medium heat. You wouldn't want it super hot. Like super hot, you're going to end up with burned pot stickers, and you don't want that. What you want is you want it hot enough for that oil to sizzle. And obviously you want that explosive reaction. That explosive reaction is part of the process. That's what allows it all to steam underneath this lid. But you don't want, what you don't want is the type of explosive reaction that I had when I was a kid, because then bad things result. So listening, I can hear that the water is mostly gone. I don't know if that's coming across to you guys, but there's still a bit of a splash sound, but it's not like, it's not going crazy. So I feel safe to check it. I'm gonna grab my spatula. And I'm just gonna pull these right off. All right, now of course, if I was doing this for a real meal, I'd probably be doing these in batches, you know, a whole bunch more that'd be ready to go and I'd just keep it running. But that's not what we're doing today. So let's just take a look. And oh, that looks great there. So one of these is a little overdone on the bottom, but most of these look really good. So let's take a peek here. You can see the bottom is nice and crisp. The top's been steamed.
It looks really tasty.
Well, I'll let you know. So let's try one. It's going to be hot too, so I hopefully won't burn myself, but let's see. So this is delicious. The main difference between this one and the one that Ray Wong used to do, my best friend's dad, is that because I mentioned he would put all this beef broth in, they would be juicy. So they would really, like, you bit into them and water, you know, liquid would go everywhere, which was fun and messy, but this is a little more dignified. Everybody but Richard will have to take my word for it that this is delicious. Richard will be able to find out for himself in a moment.
Yep.
How's that going there, Richard?
So it's steaming away. I think still quite a lot of water going on in here. I may have put too much in.
Okay. And I can turn that off at this point because we've basically gotten. So the astute will have noticed that I actually have my back door open because I knew this moment was coming. I was glad it wasn't raining or snowing today because that would have made it more awkward. But I wanted to have the ability to have air flowing through here to keep the fire alarm from going off. So I want to wait. I really want to wait to see how yours turns out, Richard. But that's basically the demo. You've just gone through the whole process, start to finish, of how you can make pot stickers. So there you go. And you can, by the way, see how the various shapes came out because they all, you know, even the ones that I wasn't super proud of when I was wrapping them, that actually looks fun. I wouldn't be unhappy serving that to a guest. And here's the tri-corner right there. Hopefully you can see that. My little tortellini I was showing you. The fourfold is there. So they all end up, you know, the cooking process is a great leveler in some respects because once they get cooked, they will retain their shapes obviously, but they are some of those imperfections just sort of go away. So I'm awaiting Richard's impending success with bated breath. Any other questions or thoughts about this?
Have you ever tried like fully steaming them?
Doing what?
Fully steamed version, like non-fried at all?
Yeah. So and that's nice. I almost never do it. I have done it, but I almost never do it simply because they're so delicious. Like as I said earlier, Stephanie was saying about, you know, oh, I think that thing is healthy, and I'm like, I don't care about healthy. It's delicious. I really do, you know, I like to make things that I like to eat, and I'm personally less concerned about the health aspect of it, as long as I'm not like getting myself out of control. Okay, hey, Richard, are you done? What do we got?
So I think a lot of these stuck to the bottom.
Oh no.
So pulling some of them away. I was using the wrong implement to start with as well to get them off. So some of them have fallen apart a little bit.
Yeah, the other thing is I'm pretty sure that the one-ton wrappers are going to be thinner than the pot sticker wrappers.
I reckon. Okay.
And that might make a difference because mine, I don't know, I mean, it's super hard to tell, but like these have a little, I don't know if you can, this is probably ridiculous to even show you this. These have a little heft to them, the thickness of them. That's not bad though, Richard. How does it taste?
I'll let you know in a moment.
All right.
A bit of Chinese vinegar and soy sauce to dip in.
It's an exciting moment. Not bad.
Tastes great. Tastes great. Like, definitely, like it tastes mostly like it's steamed. It doesn't really have any of the kind of crispy, chewy, crunchy bit at all.
Oh, really?
I may have put in too much water as well. That may be the other thing that I've done wrong. But I mean, flavor-wise, it's wonderful. Yeah, no, very good. I did. By the way, I did add a bit of MSG.
You did?
Well.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Well done. I couldn't find it.
So there's a massive Asian supermarket very close to me on St. Catherine, and well, I'm at St. Mark, and it's like 2 blocks away from me, called the Marché Mall, and they just have everything.
Okay. Is it the one that's like you enter, it almost looks like there's nothing there, and then you go upstairs, and it's gigantic. I know the one, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's my local supermarket, basically.
Okay. That's too far from me, but I'm envious of you having that near you. So, all right, well, well done, though. You have made your first pot stickers.
I have a large bowl of filling and a big packet, so I'm going to be busy all evening now.
Yeah, well, quite. Same here. I'm going to, when we're done here, I'm probably going to make a bunch more and have my dinner, having my snack now. But that's basically it, unless if there are other, any other questions or thoughts, anything anybody wants to share. I would share these if I could. No? Other Lucas? Jonathan? Or even first Lucas? Oh, thank you. Jonathan says it looks yummy.
Thanks. Really good. I'll give it a shot sometime.
Cool. Oh, where did I get the apron? So I actually won this apron. Can everyone see this? I won this apron in a secret, not a secret Santa, what do you call it? The one, the gift exchange one that you do where people steal gifts from each other.
Yankee swap.
That's the one. So this was at Unity, obviously. And one of, it was the executive assistant for the head of analytics had this, I forget, it had something else with it, but this was what I wanted. And I was like, oh my God, that is the only thing in this entire swap that I'm interested in. So I maneuvered my way to it. And I love it. It's best bit of swag I've ever had. So I don't actually even know the story about where it came from, like why this was made, but somebody, I think there were a run of these done. I was like, yep, definitely. I need a bit of Unity branded cooking gear. So, all right. Anything else? All right. Well, hey, it has been my pleasure to do this for you guys. I hope it's been fun. I've certainly enjoyed doing it. I get the delicious outcome of it. I really wish I could share with more of you the delicious outcome of it. So, but I guess we'll call it there. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for showing us how it's done. I will definitely try it sometime.
Okay, great.
And let you know how it comes in.
I would really love that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark.
You bet.
Thank you.
Round wonton wrappers instead of square ones.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.